Well, good morning. Hopefully, if everything is working correctly, you are able to see and hear me. And welcome back to our second year of trying these Google Hangouts. It's always great to have our entire R7 family back together. We get a lot done in the summer, and I know you do as well, in prepping for school to start. But having us all back and just that day that all of our teachers and others come back is a special day for us. And just like next week when our students come back, we'll experience another special day in our school district. I was thinking about skipping all of our introductions this year and just moving right into talking to you a little bit to save some time, but I had heard rumor that after last year some people wanted a better opportunity, now that they knew how this all worked, to introduce themselves and their school and show you their spirit. So we're going to take just a minute here to run down through all of the schools that are on this particular Hangout. It basically is the Lee Summit High School feeder group, and so all of your colleagues that are working together to ensure that the students flow through the system successfully and graduate and go out there and have success in their careers and lives after are on this Google Hangout with us. So we will start those introductions, and you just feel free to, when you make noise, you're on the camera until the person in your building mutes you, and then we'll move on to the next group. So we'll start out with Lee Summit Elementary. Say good morning to everyone, Lee Summit Elementary. All right, someone's arm there in the way too. I appreciate. We can see you. All right. Up next, we have Pleasant Lee Elementary. I guess everyone else saw your cheer. I didn't get it. How about Sunset Valley Elementary? Okay. And then Prairie View Elementary. Awesome. How about Highland Park? I couldn't tell what you were holding up there. I'll have to tell me about that later. How about Woodland Elementary?
Here we go, guys.
Woodland gets the prize for having the fewest people in the seats with 1 minute to go. How about Pleasant Lee Middle School? I think they were ready. How about Lee Summit High School? And then finally, we also have Great Beginnings Early Education Center with us. Okay, well, great. We appreciate everyone joining us, and maybe I don't need to, but I'll just remind all the techs out at the sites to be sure you mute the sounds out there now, or else we'll see your schools popping up. You probably already knew that, but doesn't hurt to have one more reminder, right? I appreciate everyone's time this morning. I'm Dr. McGehee, the superintendent of the school district. Hopefully all of you know that. I got to talk to all of our new teachers to the district yesterday and introduce myself to them. This is actually my 9th year as a part of the R7 family, or the Framily as one of our mobile providers puts it. It's hard to believe that it's been 9 years. I sometimes have to count it back on my fingers to figure out how long I've been here. It's my 28th year in public education in total. Some of you probably have been in it longer than that. Just think about it for a moment, and you might have to count on your fingers, both hands, multiple times. What year is it for you as an educator, whether it be in Missouri or in total, and how many years have you been in the school district? And as you do that, I I always find it fascinating to think about how much it amazes me that over the course of 28 years in education, how much things have changed in education, but maybe even more amazing and strange to me is how much they've stayed the same over time. If you think about it, a lot of the things, and a lot of the things, that's fine. They do need to stay the same, but I think that we're definitely on a cusp in education where we're going to continue to see more change than more of the same, and it's an exciting time. One of the things that has really changed is technology, and we couldn't do these Hangouts today without a lot of effort and input and change in the area of technology. If you haven't already signed up for our back channel, I just want to touch base on that real quick before we move into my comments. And you just need to be sure you go to that Today's Meet and use that R7 Proud to include your name. Also, we ask that you include your name and your school when you sign in, so when you register. We probably won't get to all your thoughts and all your questions that you might type into that, but that'll be live, and we can go back and print it all out later or take a look at it and you know, specifically be able to get back to you or your school family unit about a particular question you might have, or you may have a question that interests everyone that we don't get to today, and we can get back to everyone about that question. So go to that todaysmeet.com/R7Proud. And with reference to that R7 Proud too, if you're on Twitter, I just encourage you to use that hashtag R7 Proud when you're tweeting things out about your students or your school or your colleagues, accomplishments and things that are going on. That way we can search that hashtag, and anybody that wanted to see what's happening in our school district could find it there. So today, what do I want to talk to you about? I want to spend a little bit of time talking to you about our responsibility to the students we serve, and then also some time to talk about just the importance, particularly today, in us being united when it comes to dealing with the threats to public education, because there are a lot of them out there, and those will be some of the final remarks that I make with regard to the importance that we are acknowledging what those are, and that we're working together to ensure that public education is a vital, successful part of our society as we move forward, and particularly in our state as it comes under attack. But first, let me pause and thank each of you for choosing this noble profession. I want to thank you for choosing to give so much of yourself in the service of others. I think most people don't know how much of yourself you truly give to ensuring that your students have what they need as they come to school every day, and that they're being prepared for life as they move on out into college or the jobs or wherever they might end up. No matter your job or your role in the school district, I want you to know and feel the fact that you are an educator, and you're an important part of our mission. It doesn't matter what position you hold. I mean, you only have to look as far as one of our bus drivers, Rudy Rhodes. He's actually the Missouri Bus Driver of the Year for our state. Rudy, and he started a Book Buddies program at Prairie Elementary, and he and some of the other drivers that he's kind of convinced and shown them the value of reading with students and being connected with students. So it doesn't matter your position. We're all educators, and Rudy's a great example of that. Do you know what our mission statement is? Do you know what? Turn to the person next to you if you know our mission statement and just tell it to them. Let's see if any of you know what our mission statement is. It's actually to prepare each student for success in life. To prepare each student for success in life. And I want to talk about that for a few minutes with you this morning. The word each was purposefully put in our mission statement. We're not here to prepare most of the students for success in life. We're not here to prepare the majority of the students for success in life. I don't even like to use the term we're here to prepare all students for success in life, because the term all is kind of generic and doesn't give us the personal touch that I think we want to have in Lee Summit, to be sure that each student each day has their needs met. We're challenging them in a way and providing them the resources and the support in a way that they will be able to be successful in life that day and in the future. So, appreciate your time this morning. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for all the hard work that you put into your job. I want to thank you for the, investing in a true relationship with your students. I talk to the new teachers about the importance of relationships, and I know that you in your building with your principals and others talk about relationships and the value of relationships with students every day. Probably more important than setting all the rules the first day is to begin to develop that true relationship with the students that are in your classroom. It'll go a long way towards your success throughout the school year. And I want to thank you for your emotional investment that I know is a part of that relationship. And that emotion, as you work with students across the course of a year, can run the journey from joy to heartache and hopefully back to joy before the year is out. But they can challenge us, and they come to school and to your classrooms all with their own story. And I know that drains on you every day, and you have a lot of emotion invested in the success of your students, and I truly, truly appreciate that. And thank you for the grace and patience that you show them, your students. Thank you for the patience that you show your coworkers. Thank you for the grace and patience you show to the parents of your students, because I know that's required as well. And probably more than anything, thank you for the grace and patience that you show to me as your superintendent and others on our leadership team. I know that patience and grace is sometimes required as we try to work together and involve some of you, but not necessarily all of you, on teams and so on, to try to make decisions and implement decisions across the district. That it can be frustrating at times, and I appreciate that you are working with us and being patient as we try to do what's best for students. I hope that you know that you are appreciated. If there's anything that I could tell you today that I truly, truly want you to believe, is that I personally appreciate each and every one of you. I know that we're in this together. I know that while I'm the superintendent and some people out of position think that superintendent is like the boss and the important thing, I am the least important component of this entire process that we're trying to accomplish with regard to our mission. The teachers and others that are out there working daily with our students are the ones making it happen, and as your superintendent, I appreciate that fact, I acknowledge that fact, and thank you very much. Now, back to that mission we talked about. Hopefully some of you knew it. You turned to your colleagues and you told them that it was preparing each student for success in life. I think it's important for us to ask this question: who defines that success? If we're going to prepare each student for success in life, who defines that success? I think that as hard as we try to at times define what success is for our students, it's really each student who will determine what success looks and feels like for him or her. All we can really do as educators is equip them with the skills to determine and ultimately achieve what those successes are. We have to be careful about not being too prescriptive and thinking that we know what success means to a particular student. Certainly there are some things that we want them to leave here with, some skills that we want them to leave here with. And the curriculum may change, but those skills don't vary much through time. The key skills are, while content is important, the key skills are things like critical thinking, communication, analysis, problem solving, those things that will help them to be successful in life. We want to help them discover that content, but we, even more importantly, need to make sure they develop these skills so that they will be prepared for success in life. Success in careers that, I don't know how we could think that we could teach a student everything that they might need to be successful in a career, because the career that they choose might not even exist. We might not have even imagined it at this point in time as they flow through our system. So if we can make sure they can think, they can communicate, they can problem solve, I think we're doing our job, and then let them define what that success is and go and achieve it. So what's our role in achieving our mission to prepare each student for success in life? I don't think you have to go very far to find our role. Our district several years ago went through a process, and probably each of you at your schools have gone through processes of developing missions and values and things like that. Several years ago, we reworked our values in our school district to write them as commitments, things that we're committed to doing, things that we're committed to living. And if you think about our role in achieving the mission of preparing each student for success in life, I think you can go right to those commitments and find our role. One of those commitments is to make sure that we engage our students, that we engage them in a technology-rich environment, because that's the type of environment most of them are going to end up in out there in their careers, and even in their personal lives. They're going to be in a technology-rich environment. It's just going to be a part of their life. But we have to make sure that we're engaging the students, that we're doing a lot of project-based things with them. I'm so impressed when I walk around the district and visit classrooms on how engaged our teachers are on a regular basis with their students. I think you're truly making this commitment come to life in your classrooms. There's not a lot of sit and get that I see. There's a lot of interaction in the classrooms when I visit, and I appreciate that you're living this commitment. Another one of our commitments is to embrace open and honest two-way communication, whether that be us communicating with you, me communicating with you, you communicating with one another, with parents, or maybe even most importantly, that two-way communication that we need to have with our students. We need to be sure that we're listening to them, that we're committed to listening to them, and that we teach them to listen as well. Not just to listen to respond, but to listen to truly hear one another. And I think that we can learn a lot from one another and improve our approach to education in that way. One of our commitments is to strive to continuously improve. We shouldn't just strive for it, we should insist upon it. And if that means me having to open my mind to an idea that I've never heard of before and listen to the rationale for that idea and say, hey, let's try it, great. I want to recommit to continuously improving and insisting upon the fact that we do that. An important commitment when you think about our role in preparing each student for success is to sustain that positive relationship. Positive relationships among ourselves and that power of that relationship with the student. Above all else, I think that it's important that you remember to develop that relationship with the student. To some extent, let them know who you are and get to know who they are, and be sure that their needs are being met. We say that we're committed to ensure a rigorous and relevant learning experience. Rigorous and relevant learning experience. Certainly, rigor all the time is a focus and has been for a long time in our school district. And I think relevance is it's been a focus, and it's becoming more of a reality every year as we continue to work toward making sure that learning is relevant for the student. And we have to remember that relevant is not the same for every student. That a particular path toward a learning target for one student may be very interesting, and they'll learn that learning target and never forget it, whereas another student might need a whole different approach, or maybe within a different context to learn that particular learning path. So we have to be sure that we're flexible with our students in making sure that what they're learning is relevant to them. We have to partner with them. We're committed to partnering with the student to define learning goals and develop the plans to achieve them. That's our whole effort, to help the student become that self-directed learner. Doesn't mean that they're going to make all the decisions about their learning, but that they're going to make a lot of decisions about their learning, and then write that path and commit to that path, because it will be relevant to them if they've been a part of defining what the path will be. And then of course, we have a commitment to always ensure a safe and caring environment. Not just physically safe. I think the caring part of that is just as important as the safe part of that safe and caring environment commitment. A caring environment goes a long way toward feeling safe. Safe to share, safe to explore, safe to try and fail, safe to have an opinion. I want us to have a culture where, and some of you do feel safe to share your opinions, because I get emails from you from time to time, but I want you to be able to do that. I want you to be able to share opinions among one another, with leadership, with whomever, and feel safe to share those opinions, so that we can talk through them and try to use those discussions to make sure that we do meet one of our other commitments to continuously improve. So I think our commitments do a lot to define our role in achieving our mission. So are we embracing that environment that will truly prepare students for success in life? I want to pause here and introduce a video. We're going to show you, it's just a brief clip, and I need to set the stage for it a little bit, but I think it will go a long way toward making us think about our role and whether we're truly accomplishing that vision or that role of how students should be learning in our schools as they move through our system. So this is a video of a group of students from Summit Technology Academy, and These are students from Dr. Paul Rutherford's Morning Engineering Field Experience class. This class annually works with the City of Lee Summit on real problems, real projects. The particular project that the team, and I think there were 3 teams of students working on this project along with city staff, was the whole redesign of Sampson Road, south of Scherer, down in that area. If you know that area, Sampson Road just becomes kind of a less than 2-lane trail with a 1-lane bridge and so on. And so this group of students worked with the City of Lee Summit to try to make recommendations on what should be done about Sampson Road and how to go about getting there. And a student by the name of Jack Barnhart, who's a 2014 graduate of Lee Summit High School, he answers a question from engineer Chuck Owsley with the City of Lee Summit about what the most difficult part of this project was. And Jack's answer rang true for me and hit home with me and made me think about who I am and what I'm trying to do as an educator and as a superintendent in our school district. And I think that the answer is a wake-up call for a lot of us that we need to pay attention to. So we're going to get this video set up and watch it, and then we'll be back to you in a minute.
I would have to say the lack of almost defined borders. It's when Scott came to us, he basically said, you're designing this road, it's all up to you. We're not going to tell you, we're going to give you the tools to design it, but we're not going to give you parameters around how you need to design it. So as public education or public school students, we're used to having barriers put around us for what we're supposed to be. In places other than Summit Tech, excuse me, we're used to having basically walls put around us as how we need to do things and how we need to learn, basically. So I would probably say that was the hardest aspect, in that you had to really think outside the box as to how you wanted to design your piece of the road, whether it be road, bridge, or water team. And I'd say that would have to be probably, at least for me, the hardest part of this project.
I don't know about you, but when I listened to Jack talk about, what was the hardest part of this project for him, and he starts talking about, well, as public education students, we're used to having barriers put up around us, boundaries put up around us. It just made me think about the way the way I approached my classroom. I mean, it was very, when I was a teacher, it was very structured, and everything went a certain way, and all the students did the same thing every day. And and I graded their papers, and I gave them back to them, and I gave them a test at the end of the unit. I was a science teacher, so we did some labs and things like that. But I was not answering the call that Jack put before us in his answer to Chuck Owsley with the city on this project. So maybe when we think about our role in this whole education process and in accomplishing our mission, we first need to acknowledge what our role isn't. And I think what Jack is telling us is that our role isn't to script how each student will learn and master the skills needed. Maybe we need to begin to be more about making sure the students fully understand what it is that they should be learning from the project or whatever it might be, but then letting them help us design and figure out how to get to those learning targets. I'm not saying that we shouldn't clearly identify learning targets and have a viable curriculum. We've been doing lots of work on that. You guys have been doing a lot of work on that, and that's a must. And that's all a part of preparing students. But then I think it's our role to ask the right questions and then serve as a resource for our students to let them discover the answers to those questions. So our challenge, based upon what Jack told us, is that we should remove these boundaries from learning. Whether in the classroom or in the district as a whole, we need to encourage creativity. We talk about creativity, and there's a lot of creativity occurring in our school district, and certainly in the area of fine arts and so on, especially. We have tons of creativity occurring in our classrooms. But we need to encourage more of it, and we need to be open to more of it. And again, I go right back to our mission, vision, and commitments. Right in our vision statement, when we talk about the kind of district that Lee Summit R7 School District wants to be, it says right in our vision statement, Lee Summit R7 encourages innovation and creativity, recognizing student learning as our fundamental purpose. Right there we say encourages innovation and creativity. So what does that mean to you, and how are we doing a good job of that? To me, what that's saying is that as long as the students they know and can do what we want them to be able to do, it doesn't matter so much how they get there. So yeah, we need to identify and determine what it is they need to be able to do and know to be successful. But how to get there, I think we need to be more creative, more innovative with regard to that. So if you walk out of here hearing one thing today, I hope that you'll remember, if you don't remember anything I say, remember what Jack said. Remember the words of Jack Barnhart, and think about your classroom and how it can model an environment where the students will not just find solutions to questions that you pose to them, but they may even be determining the problem itself, and working along with you in order to determine what is the problem, and then work with you as a resource and a mentor to determine how to resolve that problem, and then learn the actual things that we want them to learn along the way. And that's really what life is all about. That's what's going to be required of them in life. And I promise you, I'm not just telling you to do this. I'm challenging myself and others in leadership to embrace creativity as well. And I'm not the most creative person in the world naturally, so that's something I've got to work on. I'm kind of concrete sequential myself, but we have to be open to ideas. We have to foster an environment of innovation and creativity so that it is safe. When we talk about being safe, so that it's safe to not just have an idea, but to speak it out loud to others, to advocate for it, to push for it, to work together through all the issues it might take to make it happen. All of us have ideas. You've got great ideas. You've probably been talking about ideas out there in your schools that we have at times said, I don't know if that'll work. Bring them back up. My point is we need to go back to some of those old ideas that maybe haven't even been spoken out loud. I pulled out something that I was working on with regard to school structures and leadership that I'd been working on in 2009, 2010, and began to talk about it again with our leadership team, because it was something that I was just doing in my office and not sharing with others. And then I put it away because I thought, well, there's no way we could do those sorts of things. Get those ideas out of your head. Let's get them out on the table. Let's talk about them. If you think about our school district and the fact that it's tradition, we've been very, very successful. So what am I talking about? Why do we need to change? Well, I think that our school district over time, and even during the time that I've been here, we have placed too much value on everyone being the same, all the schools being the same. We've done that for a long time, and it's worked for a long time. We've at times had ideas come, say for example, from one middle school, and then we've thought about, well, would that work in the other two middle schools? Well, no, we couldn't do that everywhere, so let's not do it there either. We've got to get out of that mindset. We've got to let people try things. If it's going to be good, if it has a chance of making us better, and it's well vetted, and there's a strategic approach to implementing it, we need to give these new ideas a try. Because a one-size-fits-all approach won't work today in our school district. Similar approaches from school to school and class to class worked for the majority of students for a long time because the majority of our students were all the same. It won't work today. Our students are not the same. They're not all the same. They have lots of different needs. They never were really the same, but we were kind of in that era of all where majority rules. Students today are more diverse than ever, and we've got to be creative in our approaches to reaching them. I heard a statistic the other day when I was at the U.S. Ed Department. Arnie Duncan, the Secretary of Education in D.C., was talking about the fact that it's projected that across the country this year in public schools that the minority is the majority, that there will be more minority students sitting in the classrooms of our public schools across the country for the first time in the United States. So across our country and right here in our own school district, we've got to be more diverse, be willing to try new things, and be willing to listen to you when you have great ideas. So we need to live out this vision of innovation and creativity, and I hope that you can come up with some good ideas, some great ideas to help students achieve. I hope you come up with ideas that we just can't ignore, that we have to vet and say, let's hear more about that, and maybe even we'll implement a lot of those ideas. It can be scary. I know that some on our leadership team, as I've been talking to others about, getting out of our comfort zone, get out of the box, cross the line, all of these kinds of terms are new to some folks, and they require us to let go of some of the control. But I think we need to do that, and I think that we'll be a better school district if we're able to do that. And I promise I'll be trying to do this as well, asking you to do it, and I'll be trying to do it with our mission in mind to prepare each student for success in life, however they choose to define it. Let's think on that a little bit. I want to shift gears. I told you I would talk to you some about the unity that's going to be required for us to accomplish all the things that we've just talked about in an era of what I would consider anti-public education sentiment. There are many that don't want us to succeed at these things that we're talking about. And I would point out that this isn't a debate over the value of public education that just started, this week or this year or in the last decade, or even just in our state. Public schools are an American creation, and public schools didn't always exist. And at times in our nation's history, the opposition to public schools and the access to education by all was as divisive as the issue of slavery in our country. So that same opposition to public schools exists today. There are people out there that don't believe in public schools. They have different ideals, and they want to push their ideas on all of us at the expense of a quality public education for every student in our community. We're being attacked on all fronts. If you think about the variety of fronts, whether it be tax cuts at a time when our foundation formula isn't funded at the moment, we're going to reduce our state's ability to take in revenue. The tax cut proposal that was passed by the legislature was sponsored by one of our senators. If you think about the special tax exemptions that were passed, and you were reading a lot about in the news that were passed in the last week of the legislative session, most of our folks supported those tax exemptions. And now we are actually having about $3 million of our state aid withheld by the governor until after the veto session in September to see whether those special tax exemptions stick. And if they stick, we won't see most of that money that was promised by our legislature to us this year. And you'll hear the politics between the legislature and the governor, but when it comes right down to it, when you look at the proposed tax cuts and the special tax exemptions, it's impossible for the state to fund our foundation formula. We have one of our own representatives is a leading proponent of vouchers in our state, taking public dollars and sending them to private schools. So all of this is happening, and it's hitting very close to home. Think about buying of public policy. In a democracy, today, public policy can be bought through campaign contributions, even campaign contributions to both sides of an election, so that you can be sure that whoever wins the election is in your pocket. It's ridiculous. And now we even have multiple efforts by a St. Louis billionaire to revise the Missouri Constitution. And if you think about Amendment 3 and other efforts that this particular individual has led, and now he's got this on the ballot in November. It's going to require unity. It's going to require us working together as educators, whether we be teachers or bus drivers or administrators. We've got to work together to preserve public education. That preservation is going to require unity among our ranks. And I can tell you that I have spent a lot of political capital advocating for our public schools in recent years. Our school district has been bold in our advocacy, and there have been prices to pay for taking a strong stand. I've been attacked personally by people that represent the billionaire. We've had our legislature you know, want to reprimand us a bit for some of our stance on issues. So there has been a price to pay. Few among our colleagues, if you look across the state and particularly in the KC Metro, have been willing to educate patrons through advocacy newsletters like we have been willing to track and publish voting records of the people that represent us in Jefferson City like we have. We need to get more school districts to do these sorts of things. We need to work more together to be sure that we're educating others about these attacks on public education. I encourage you, if you aren't signed up for our district newsletter on advocacy, you need to sign up. I also encourage you to go to sites like MoParent and others that are supportive of our issues and provide lots of information about public education issues and advocacy. And then you decide what you want to do about it. Because in all honesty, I'm not even sure how much good it does for me to advocate as hard as I do anymore. Because you see, people care a lot more about what teachers, bus drivers, custodians, cooks, parents, PTA members, they care a lot more about what all of you have to say about these issues than they do superintendents. They're tired of hearing from superintendents. They're tired of hearing from me. They see me coming, they get a particular attitude, you know, on their face right off the bat. They need to hear from you. So I encourage you to stand up and be counted for when it comes to education policy. And frankly, if we don't advocate for schools, for our kids and our schools, who can we expect to do it? So with that, I appreciate you listening to me today. Let's work together to fight that good fight to preserve public schools. Let's work together to bring these great ideas to action so that we can put them to work for our students. And I'll get a chance at the end to wish you a great school year, but I'll do that here as well. And we do want to move into kind of a question and answer time with regard to our you know, the presentation portion is finished here. I certainly welcome any of you that are bold enough to come up to the microphone, and we can see you coming up to the microphone and you can ask your question. We've also been collecting some questions that have come up from the ranks through the back channel. Hopefully you're using that back channel, and you know, we want to hear your thoughts there. Don't, you know, whether it's questions or just ideas or you know, the more you put there, the more we'll have to chew on after these sessions, and maybe we can come back to you and talk about some of those things later. So I'm looking at a screen here with lots of questions on it that are part of our back channel. But if someone that hasn't put a question in the back channel and they end up kind of walking up and get our attention, we can do that as well. We've got Rusty and others monitoring that situation, and we'll make sure that your microphone's on and that your camera's on so that everybody can hear and see you. So a few questions from Lee Summit High School. We were asked. The question was, we were asked to brainstorm ideas last year regarding future high school programming. Any update concerning this whole project? And I appreciate Dr. Falkenberry, who served on the team, and so he probably knows the answer to this question. But it's a good question for everyone else to hear. You know, we did do spend a lot of time with a small team. And the point was to kind of study this in a small group setting initially, because you get too many people freaked out about crazy wild things, and the next thing you know, you might not be able to get any of them done. But that team, I think one of the primary things that the team did that I participated in was going out and listening to students. It was actually Lee Summit High School and a group of students that I listened to respond to questions about what they wanted in a future high school. And really, where are we in this whole process? We're in the process of taking what we knew, actually pausing for a little bit and sitting on that information, and we'll have the right conversations and dialogue about that information as we move forward. But we now need to pause and take a look at our entire comprehensive facility master plan. That's that plan where we evaluate our enrollment, we evaluate what we need in the future with regard to facilities, and we made it one of our board action items this year to go back through all the data and all the assumptions on that plan, and then try to revisit exactly when do we believe that this fourth high school needs to come on board, spend 12 months doing that, then come back and take up this conversation again of, okay, now we have a target. Let's begin to have deeper dialogue about what does it look like, what's the programming look like, and so on. Frankly, I can tell you that our students are not real interested in having one particular high school out there that's different from the rest. And if you think about our school district, that's kind of the way we think. So it's probably more about how do we get more innovative in programming across the board in all of our high schools versus creating some high school that's special in comparison to the others in some way. That doesn't necessarily isn't a good concrete answer, but that's kind of where it's still a lot of dialogue going on with regard to future high school program, what it'll look like. But I would say that it's probably going to end up being, if we can find that there's something different that we could be doing that could benefit students, we're going to find a way for it to benefit all students, not just a group of students that go to one particular high school. A quick little question there about the plan to remove the athletic fee or activity fee, and that this is an additional burden on families coming from Lee Summit High School. I can tell you that at this time, no, there's no discussion about removing that fee. We still indicate over the course of our long-range planning depletion of district reserves over time, and the revenue that we receive from that activity fee is about what we spend. I mean, if people really want to know what do you get for it, it just about covers all of our officials for our activities on the athletic side and costs. And we don't have a huge investment of operation dollars outside of our classrooms into our activities like some districts do, and this fee is something that is helping us to maintain and keep all of the activities that our students and our parents want. So no conversation currently about removing that particular fee. I will tell you that this was the first year in my time as a parent, although I have one student left, she's decided not to participate in any athletics her senior year, so the check that I wrote was a little smaller, and that was kind of nice. Let's see what else we have here. What direction do you think the state will take regarding Common Core? Well, the legislature's really acted on Common Core and basically said DESE has to go back, redo some work with regard to setting standards in our state, and that they can't wholeheartedly adopt a particular whole curriculum in whole that's a part of a consortium. Really, I don't think it's going to change a whole lot. We're headed down a particular path of greater rigor, and in a way that we can compare ourselves more accurately to other states, rather than every state, including the one right next door to us to the west, having a total different set of standards than we have. And so I think our state's going to continue down the path, whether we call it Common Core, but toward the new assessments that our students will take this spring, and we're going to continue down the path of rewriting our curriculum to align with that concept. What are the appropriate things or pictures to share via Twitter? I would just use your digital citizenship there, and I would be sure that you're not doing anything in the back realms of Twitter or any other social media with students that isn't totally viewable and doesn't have something to do with education in general. I converse with students a little bit. It's all out there in the open, and try not to. I try to balance a little bit of humor and so on with them, and so you might agree or disagree to the way I handle Twitter, but it has created some very real examples of students feeling like they were listened to. It's resolved some things that could have become problems with regard to social media as they alert myself or others via this tool. So not really a great answer to your question, but I would say just to think about board policy, think about protocols with regard to digital citizenship when you're using any form of social media. And it says here that there's a note that I should tell you to check for the media release on student pictures. So there are some guidelines with regard to posting pictures of students And I don't know if that's particularly your question, but there are some guidelines with regard to posting of pictures of students on your Twitter, and so you do need to be careful with the way you utilize that. That's always a challenge for me because I'll go out into a classroom and visit, and I like to take pictures of student learning, and I always have to kind of touch base with the principal or the teacher to try to determine, are there students in this picture, or do I need to trash it because I can't put it out there. Is there one resource we can go to find links to public school advocacy groups around Missouri? Again, I think that if you go to that MoParent site, it's a fairly new site, and it will give you a lot of good information, and it'll give you options on how you can get involved. And so probably if you just Google MoParent, it would get you there. I don't have the link here in front of me, but I think that would be a good way to do it. And we don't have a voucher system in Missouri currently. That was a part. There was a voucher system that was a part of the unaccredited school district solution that was proposed, but the governor vetoed that bill. So at this time, my answer to that would be no, that we don't have any kind of a voucher system. How do we tear down the barriers and allow students to think critically and openly when we have closed, scripted curricula and tests? And again, I think that, Nate, I appreciate that question. And you know what? I appreciate people like Nate, because Nate will always ask good questions, and sometimes they're tough questions, but he feels safe to ask those questions, and I appreciate that, Nate, about you. I don't know if I'll answer your question very well, though, but I believe that we do need to have, and hopefully you agree, we need to have curriculum. But more importantly, we need to, within that curriculum, identify what is it that students need to know and be able to do. What specifically are the learning targets? And then truly, you as a teacher, Nate, need to have the flexibility on how you get your students there. And then we need to work on how we're assessing whether the students are there or not. And I've been talking to Christy and others upstairs about our DSAs and things like that. I don't want us doing anything that isn't helping or isn't purposeful. And so if our timing of our DSAs are wrong, if the structure of them are wrong, and I'm not saying it is, because I'm just a superintendent who hasn't developed any of this stuff. I'm just trying to listen and take it all in and be a part of critical discussion. But if we can get better at any of that, we need to get better at it. And I hope that you get from my comments today that it isn't closed, and that we're going to refine, and that you should have the freedom in your classroom on how you get students to those learning targets, how you get students to mastery, and work within your team in your school, work with your principal and your department heads and so on to do that. But if you've got ideas, Nate, I hope that they're after some of the messages I've delivered this year, that maybe those ideas are listened to and with more of an intent to incorporate or to hear them out. Aside from receiving the district advocacy newsletter, how can we be involved and vocal in supporting our public schools? Yeah, the most involved, effective way that you could be supporting our public schools is to go to the polls and elect the right people that we send to Jefferson City. And I'm not going to talk here about who the right people are, but you need to pay attention to that. Find that information, see what people stand for, ask them questions. If you want to know how a legislator stands on an issue, ask them. And then once you get their answer, if you want, you can ask me to see if that's the way they really stand on an issue, because sometimes they say they support public education, but when you look at their votes, they don't. If you haven't seen the voting records, we could certainly publish those out to you again. They're out there in a variety of formats. But pay attention to our website. It has a lot of good information about advocacy, and look at those places like MoParent. I think that there's a lot of information out there, but call your legislators. Let them know how you feel. They need to hear from you. I'm not involved in any conversations with regard to public charter schools in the area. Certainly, the statutes allow them to occur. The statutes allow for a charter school to exist in our school district as long as it's approved by the Board of Education. So there's some leadway in there, some control on that, but nothing. I haven't heard of any plans for any major public charter school development, and certainly a lot of the conversation about the Kansas City School District has died down with regard to some of the ideas that might have involved more charters by other nonprofit agencies since they received their provisional accreditation. There's a question here about if we do lose the $3 million from this year's budget, what's the plan to deal with it? Well, fortunately, we've been dealing with tough budgets for a long period of time since 2009 through cost containment, and while some folks might look at our current reserve of around 29% and say we need to be spending that money, if you look over time, over the course of 7 years, we project to spend a lot of that money, unless our assumptions are way off, and all of a sudden our assessed valuation increases and they fully fund the formula and so on. We need that reserve. But the good thing about having that reserve as well is we don't necessarily have to tackle a loss of $3 million over one budget year, but that we can look at our planning, things that are proposed to occur in the future, and reevaluate those plans and potentially absorb them over multiple budget years. So at this time, we're not doing anything about it. We're waiting to see what occurs. I fully believe that at least some of those resources will be released, and that the governor will release the majority, if not all, of those resources if the vetoes are not overridden on the special tax exemptions in September. Could we advocate for business world and our schools using technology like this to assist students in future job interests and opportunities? Certainly. I mean, what we can do, like when we work with our business roundtable group, which is a group of CEOs and business owners, we share these ideas, and we share with them what we're doing with technology, and so hopefully that will lead to good conversations about how they might be able to use some of the same technology. Yeah, and as far as activity fees and non-sports and so on, the activity fee is for anything that requires travel, competition fees, those sorts of things. And so in areas like music and so on, if it's MISHA competitions, bus costs, registrations, all those sorts of things, that's why there's this particular rationale for why certain things were plugged into the activity fee, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that those activities have extra costs outside of the normal curriculum. Fourth middle school, probably someone asked about fourth middle school, probably one of the next buildings that we will build most likely will be a fourth middle school. That is where we are seeing the greatest pressure on our current enrollment and our projected enrollment. Okay, we've been at this for almost an hour, so I'm going to shut it down there. I want to conclude real quick with just one more plug. A lot of this flexibility and creativity, while the technology isn't the reason to or the primary focus, technology lets us be more creative and provides you more opportunities to work, communicate with students, to broaden that approach to the curriculum, and we could not do in the area of technology what we're doing without the help of our Education Foundation. We'll have, in just the last 3 years, have placed 7,000 Chromebooks into the schools across our district. That's a huge number and a huge accomplishment, and it's allowing us to be more creative. And I just encourage you to consider some nominal contribution to Education Foundation. It's easy to do. You can do it through direct deposit. There's all kinds of ways to do that, and I know that Cheryl Frankie, our director, has people talking to you more about that. But I just think I would be remiss if I didn't reference and mention that we should all be supporting the Education Foundation, if nothing else, because all of that money comes back to our schools and back to our students. So with that, thank you for your time. Hopefully we didn't waste any of your time and that we got most of the questions answered. You had some great questions, and I appreciate those, and appreciate the fact that you felt safe to ask them. And if there's anything else that comes to mind, this back channel is open, and you can certainly go in there and plug more questions in. Eventually, I will be looking at all the comments, all the questions, and everything that you tell us in that back channel environment. So appreciate your time. Thanks for being a part of the Lee Seminar 7 family, and have a great school year.